こんにちは、ショーンと言います。というわけで、フィンチ家の奇妙な屋敷で起きたことの続きやっていきたいと思います。覚えたぜ。いくか。ちなみに今の位置ってのはあれだな。自分はちょっとコメントの無用でつけたから、それの位置だな、多分。
I can't imagine my mom ever writing poetry, and yet...
よいしょ。
A poem for Gus, who always said the wedding was a bad idea.
結婚式をやめとけ
Our
ってずっと
father
言って
never
た
hit us kids, at least not very hard, before the day my brother said with teenage disregard that he'd be dead before he'd see a wedding in our yard.
ああ、なるほど。
My father made him come, of course, but Gus stood far apart, just flew his kite and bottled up the storm inside his heart.
ああ。
I tried to talk him out of it, but though he'd never met her, we don't need a stepmom were the words that I
now
remember.
pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride.
When the time for photos came, Dad ordered him to come here. But Gus declined and as a sign held up his middle finger. The wind picked up and panicked geese appeared and quickly went. But all the humans did that day was go inside the tent.
あ
The rain came down in buckets then, but no one seemed afraid that nature might destroy the tent our dad had crudely made.
あ、まさかの考え。
The thunder sounded much too close and full of angry power. But all my father said to this was, "Make the music louder."
ああ。 おお。
I wish that I could truly say I thought about you on that day. Out there on the beach alone, just you, the wind, the sea, and foam. But I didn't. Until we found you.
ああ。
She never talked about him, but Mom told me once if I was a boy, they were going to name me Gus.
なるほど。 違うか。こっち行く。あ、サムじいちゃんが持ってきたのか。 のじいちゃんじゃねえな。じいちゃんじゃないんだっけ忘れちって昨日やったのにな。どんな感じかな。どっか行けるとこがいそうな感じなのか。なんか右に行ったら行けそう的なのもないしな。こっち登れんなこれ。
My mom moved up to the loft after her brothers died. At the time, it was as far away as she could get. She spent a summer building houses in Calcutta, where she met my dad, Sanjay. My mom moved to India a week after graduation and got a job teaching English. Louis was born a year later. When my dad died, I don't think Mom knew where else to go. I'm sure Edie was happy to have her back. And to see kids in the house again. The house had to get a little bigger, but Edie was used to that. And for a while, things were good. Almost normal. But it didn't last. The beginning of the end was Milton's 10th birthday, when Edie gave him a castle. After Milton disappeared, the only thing he left behind was a room full of paintings. Milton Finch in The Magic Paintbrush. I was 4 when Milton disappeared. Mom spent months searching for my brother. Then she sealed the doors. Whatever Milton had found in the house, Mom didn't want it getting out.
そうやって言うのか。
Religion was another thing my mom never talked about, but I think it helped her a lot after her dad died.なるんだね、もう一回。怖いけない。そうそう、あれか。ライちゃん。そうだ。何も語ることなさすぎてあっちがなんかあるのか。これが奥さんと見ただけか。でもこっち側行けんな、そりゃ今思えば。 Mom definitely blamed Edie, but I think Louis blamed himself. After he graduated, he just spent more and more time in his room, until Mom got him a job at the cannery. Everyone always told me to stay out of Lewis's room. Except Lewis.
すごい部屋だよいしょ。ここから潜入ですか。
Lewis's room smelled very, very familiar. That part of him lived on.
Dear Mrs. Finch, as Lewis's psychiatrist, I can understand your desire for an explanation. As I see it, the trouble began in January, shortly after we convinced your son to seek treatment for substance abuse. Newly sober, I believe Lewis first noticed the monotony of his daily life. He kept working at the cannery. But he withdrew part of himself. In our sessions, I saw the same behavior. His mind began to wander. I asked him to describe it. He said he started small, imagining a labyrinth. He'd feel his way about. Then something moved. Bats. And toads. And things that have not names. He knew it was all in his head. But he took it very seriously. I had hoped he'd find himself. But he found something more. I worried about him. Daydreaming at the cannery. I spoke with his boss. But he said Lewis had become a model employee. Methodical, tireless, focused. Like a whole new Lewis. So I let him go on. I even encouraged him. It seemed very promising at first. He told me he'd made a new friend. On the edge of a city he named Lewis Topia. He built the city up slowly, brick by brick. Then he made musicians. And songs for them to play. He talked about starting a band. And he was always humming something. Every day his imagination grew stronger. He no longer spoke at the cannon. But his chopping was as reliable as ever. Then one day it struck him that all the cheering crowds, even the stones under his feet, were all in his imagination, so he could do whatever he wished.
おい
He held an election for mayor,
そういうみたい
and he won.
反応
They begged him to stay, but his mind was already
あ
wandering.
のゲーム感を感じるお船に
It became a game for him.
本当だよゲームになってるよ何この
He'd conquer a city, then immediately push on. New Louisville,
なんか
St. Louis.
ドラクエみたいな感じで
He started drifting away from our reality.
ほんとねロールプレイングみたいになってるから
Minneapolis, until one day he forgot to go home from the cannery.
マジで
Even as his mother pleaded with him, part of Louis kept sailing on.
確かに懇願されてるわ
In Louisburg, he heard rumors of a
あこれどっちかなこれ美しい王女とか
beautiful prince.
また似たくる
The prince was on his own quest for
光り輝く虹を探して
radiant rainbows.
あ倒しちゃった
He followed the sound of his
銀のハーブを
silver harp.
王子がハーブなんか聞きそうなのか聞かないのかよく
His
わかんない
chase led him to a golden palace east of the sun and west of the moon. Even then, his logic remained sound. He knew the world was all in his imagination.
おいおいおいちょっとロールプレイングと魚機の同時進行結構難しいぞ
But he was so proud of having created it.
お開いたよっ
In his own eyes, he'd become something greater than a
そうだ
king.
けどなこのゲームこういうゲームよっ
For someone who'd never known success in the real world, I
別
think it
ゲ
was
ーじゃねこれ
overwhelming.
まあいいんだ
And then it struck him that the real Louis was not the one chopping salmon, but the one climbing the steps of a golden palace.
リスナーなんかかっこいい顔してるしな
My imagination is as real as my body, he told me. It was hard to argue with him. I began to forget the world we know.
何
I think it pained him to remember Louis, the cannery worker.
あ
He began to despise the man with a royal contempt.
自分じゃ。
I still thought I could save him. Even after he said he was being crowned king over all the lands of wonder.
Oh.
The palace would be packed with his companions. Including the wise Calico who'd insisted on advising him.
イケメンの姿。リアルなゲームの世界に来ちゃった。ゲームの世界に本当に来ちゃったみたいな。
His prince waited, holding his crown. There was only one thing left to do. Bend down his head. The rest I think you know. Mrs. Finch, your son was a kind man who will be missed by all of us who knew him.
My brother was really cool. I wish you could have met him.
なるほどな。
Lewis and I spent a lot of time playing games together, but he was surprisingly bad at them. He died a lot.
よいしょ。また登ってる感じ。
On the way back from Lewis's funeral, my mom told me to start packing. She waited until the day before we left to tell Edie.
Ah. こう置いていく感じ。あ、持ってきちゃったのか。ってことは、こう登ってきて、上に行くが正解。
I'm not sure if she wanted to make it easier or harder. I wish we'd stayed. But I understand why we left. My mom ended up leaving everything behind. What happened that night had been coming for a long time. Maybe I should have come sooner. But it had to end one way or another. All that's left now is to tell you about that last night.
終わった。
That whole last day, Edie just watched us pack and didn't say a word. Until supper, when she raised her glass and said,
To our final night together, and all our final nights apart.
Grandma, you know what I said about alcohol. Some of your medications are very
Edith,
specific.
I left a present for you in the hallway. Why don't you go open it? The grown-ups have to argue now.
I'm sorry, you're right. We're all leaving tomorrow. Let's just enjoy our last...
I'm not leaving.
Edith, you're excused.
the power had been shut off that morning, but Edie always had plenty of candles. When my mom sealed the library, I don't think she knew about the other entrance. Or that Edie had a key to it.
That thing you're afraid of isn't going to end when you leave the house. Edith has a right to know these stories.
My children are dead because of your stories. I think it's best if Edith and I leave tonight. We'll have the nursing home send a van for you in the morning. Okay?
Dear Edith, there's so many stories I wish I could tell you, but there's only time for one. This is about what happened on the night you were born. That night, the tide went way, way out. It was the first and last time I ever saw the old house aground. There'd been an earthquake out in the middle of the ocean. They called it the lowest tide in 1,000 years.
相当レアだったな。1000年に1回ってこと。相当レアだったらしまんまりって感じか。綺麗いいな。さっき近くに降りたような気はしたけど。
God, it smelled awful. You know, I've seen that house every day of my life.
そう見えてたな、あの家。あ、行けるんだ。
But I never thought I'd go back to it. When the fog rolled in, I lost my way.
これは道わからんぞ。
I got turned around. I started seeing things. Things I'd forgotten had ever existed. But when I saw them, they felt like old friends. That night, a lot of things came back to me.
あ、家に着いた。
Or maybe I came back to them. Things I can't explain, but that I need you to try and...
Edith, what are you doing in here?
It's mine.
Edith!
Mom, you're gonna rip it! Let go! I kicked and screamed, but Mom dragged me to the car.
Ah.
I never saw Great-Grandma Edie again. The next morning, the van came to pick her up, but she was already gone. After that, we moved around a lot. We both tried to make the best of it. A few years went by. My mom didn't like to talk about it.
Oh.
But she started getting sick a lot.
Whoa.
The rest happened pretty quickly. She got better for a while, and then she didn't. And then I was alone.
Ah, なるほど。
The last Finch left alive. Until I found out about you. I'm still not sure what to tell you about all this. If we lived forever, maybe we'd have time to understand things. But as it is, I think the best we can do is try to open our eyes. And appreciate how strange and brief all of this is.
What do you got?
This journal was supposed to be for you.
Oh.
But now I hope you'll never see it. I just want to meet you. And tell you all these stories myself. But I guess if you're reading this now, things didn't work out that way. This is where your story begins. I'm sorry I won't be there to see it. It's a lot to ask, but I don't want you to be sad that I'm gone. I want you to be amazed that any of us ever had a chance to be here at all. Good luck.
すべての終わり。なんか開発者の子供時代みたいな感じになってる写真が飾られてるの。 ヨハン。深いゲームだったなこれ。かっけえな。ショットガン片手にじゃないけど。チェスだな。お、すげえ。お、チームじゃん。結構長い間作られてたんだな。お、ザ・エンドになった。お、ストーリーをリプレイスオプション追加されました。最初からプレイスにはエディスを選択してくださいと。なるほど。OK をしていいのかな。 OK。 結構長い間開発してるのかなこのゲーム。まあ、というわけでクリアしましたな。なんか結構深かったなこのゲーム。もう一回やったらよくわかんのかな。内容よくわからなかったわけじゃないけど。なるほどな。そうか、最後にそうなるのか。まあよかったな。前々から気になってたゲームではあったから。さあ、というわけでフィンチ家の奇妙な屋敷で起きたこと、奇妙な家で起きたことか。以上となります。というわけでありがとうございました。さて次何やろうかな。何やろうね次。結構いろいろやり残したゲームがありすぎるから。そろそろファイアーエムでもやるって手もあるかな。最近全然やってないからな。それでもいいんだよし、まあ、新しいゲームを次回やっていきますか。明日は用事があるので、明後日あたりでも やりますか。というわけで以上フィンチ家の家で起こった奇妙なことでした。また違うゲームでお会いしましょう。さよなら。